My name is Rachel. I am 42 years old, and I died in the flood that destroyed Texas in 2025 and took the man of my life. I have lived in rural Texas since I was born. I have always been part of the church, but nothing prepared me for the day the sky poured water on Texas. I am the mother of 2 children, Samuel, 15, and Ruth, 9. They are my life. My husband, Daniel, was an honest, simple man, one of those who don't talk much but carry the world on their shoulders. A truck driver for over 20 years, and he dreamed of retiring. We were always discreet, an ordinary family living under the grace of God, until grace turned into a storm. That week, the rain fell like never before. First it was light, then constant. The news said it was an unusual cold front, but something in me knew it was not just a cold front. Daniel noticed too. "There's something different about this rain," he said. But even so, like everyone else, we went on with our routine until everything collapsed. On Friday at dawn, I woke up to the sound of wood cracking. It was like the house itself was screaming. The floor was cold and soaked. The water already covered my ankles. I ran to the window, and what I saw took my breath away. The street had vanished. Cars floated. Neighbors screamed. The water advanced as if it had a life of its own, swallowing everything. I screamed for Daniel. He was already awake, lifting the kids to the attic. "Grab the documents! Your mother's Bible! Ruth's backpack!" he shouted. We ran. Everything was so fast. In minutes, the house shook with a roar. The back wall gave way and a brown, thick, muddy wave entered the kitchen like an enraged monster. I saw Daniel being swept away. Our eyes met for a second, and there was the goodbye that was never said. I tried to go after him, but the force of the water knocked me down brutally. I hit my head, spinning as if I was inside a machine. I tried to swim. I fought. My lungs burned. I begged, "God, please, save my children." The last image I had was my daughter's face, her fearful eyes, and then silence. The water covered me completely. The cold took my body. The sound disappeared. And all that remained was darkness. At the same time everything went dark, something inside me awoke. There was no more noise, no pain. It was as if the whole world had gone silent, and I too. But strangely, I was still there. I opened my eyes, and what I saw made me understand that something had completely changed. I was outside myself, outside the life I knew. Below, my body floated among the debris of the house that once was the safest place in the world. My wet hair mixed with mud and splinters of wood. I looked, empty, dead. But I didn't feel dead. I felt strangely awake. I looked around and recognized everything. The roof of our house was almost submerged. The old oak tree in front had fallen. The street disappeared. It was a sea of destruction. And then I heard something that cut the silence like a knife. My daughter's voice. "Mom!" The scream came from the attic, high-pitched, desperate. Ruth had half her body out the window, wet, trembling, screaming my name as if there was still hope. Samuel was beside her, trying to hold her, trying to be strong, but his eyes said something else. They were losing their mother, and they knew it. I tried to answer. I tried to shout, "I'm here! I'm fine!" But nothing came out. I had no voice. I had no body, only the feeling, and it went through me completely. And even so, as absurd as it seems, I felt peace. Not an emotional peace, not a mental peace. It was a spiritual peace, pure, enveloping, as if someone greater was telling me, "I am with you. Do not fear." And it was at that moment that I saw Daniel. He was further away, swept by the current, still fighting, strong arms, but now already heavy. I saw when he tried to grab a piece of our gate, but the waters won. His body sank. And in that second, something inside me screamed, but it wasn't a sound, it was a tear inside. I wanted to run to him, I wanted to reach him, but all I could do was watch. And even so, something kept me from despairing. The mist began to open slowly, as if something much greater was about to be revealed. I didn't hear footsteps, didn't see flashing light, but I felt someone approaching. And when I looked, he was already there, in front of me. He wasn't like the images from church. He was simple. A man, tall, light tunic, bare feet, a calm face, but the eyes were unlike anything. They pierced me without saying a word. At that moment, I knew who he was. I didn't need to ask. I didn't need to confirm. It was him, Jesus. He didn't need to do anything but look at me, and it was as if my whole life passed before me. And then he spoke. "Rachel." Just the way he said my name already broke me inside. It was as if he had been calling me forever, and only now had I heard it. Your pain was not ignored. When I heard that, something inside me broke. I didn't need to explain anything. I didn't need to justify what I felt, what I thought, the fear that invaded me that night. He already knew. And then he took a step forward, calmly but firmly. "But there is something you need to see." At that moment, it was as if time had stopped. I understood. He was not there just to comfort me. He wanted to show me something that explained everything that was happening, something I had no idea of, but that would change everything. And before I could say anything, the scene around us began to change, as if the mist was clearing to reveal what really mattered. I could only think of one thing. Why did Jesus want me to see? And what exactly was he about to show me? The scene was changing, as if I were being carried without moving my body, when I realized I was in another place. A wide space, silent, unlike anything I had ever seen, neither bright nor dark. It was as if time did not exist there. And I was not alone. There were other people, many, some sitting, others standing, but all with the same look. They seemed lost. No one cried, no one spoke. It was as if everyone was waiting for something, or someone, I did not understand what that place was. Then Jesus appeared again, now at my side. He looked at the people and then looked at me. All these people also went through tragedies like you, he said. I remained silent. I felt a different weight in that environment. It was not fear, it was a kind of reverence, an awareness that I was in a place where pain still spoke loudly, but also where something greater was about to happen. Jesus continued, "Before giving you rest, I need to give you understanding." The phrase kept echoing inside me. Rest was all I wanted, peace, an end to the pain. But he was making it clear it was not time yet. I needed to see. I needed to understand what was behind it all. And there, in that room full of people like me, it became clear that the pain was not only mine. There was something greater behind it, something he wanted to reveal. Suddenly, I saw. It was a map, huge. From above, I could recognize the entire United States, but there was something strange. A dark fog covered much of the territory. It was heavy, dense. It was not a normal cloud. It was as if it were something alive, spiritual. And then points began to appear, as if they were stains that blinked and burned. One by one, I recognized the places: New Orleans, California, Texas, Florida, places marked by natural disasters, floods, fires, hurricanes, earthquakes. Each point shone like a kind of collapse, but not physical, spiritual. I did not understand at the time, but Jesus was there with me, and he spoke firmly. This did not begin with the rain. It began with rejection. Those words froze me. The rejection, not of nature, but of God. At that moment, I felt as if he was revealing something the whole world insists on ignoring, that what we call natural tragedy is often only the reflection of a spiritual crack that began earlier, inside, in people's hearts, in nations. Jesus was not accusing, but he was not softening the truth either. That map showed me that America's pain was not only physical, it was spiritual, and it had a reason. And what he was about to show afterward was even heavier. While I was still looking at that map covered by the fog, Jesus extended his hand and the scene transformed before me. It was no longer the map. Now I saw scenes, as if windows had opened, showing the real lives of people. I saw entire neighborhoods full of luxurious houses, people chasing money, buying more, wanting more, living as if nothing else mattered. Families sitting at the table, but each one on their cell phone. Churches crowded, but with empty hearts. I saw political debates, fights, idolatry disguised as defense of values, people trading faith for ideology. I saw shows, parties, stadiums full, and in the midst of it all, a deep absence of God. Jesus looked at me and said, "The problem is not what they have. It is the place they put it in their hearts." I understood. It was not about wealth itself or about culture. It was about priority. The nation's heart had drifted away, and even with Bibles on shelves, crosses on necks, and churches on every corner, the real presence of God had been left aside. "They keep an appearance of faith," he said, "but they deny the power." That phrase cut deep because the truth was this. On the outside, everything looked religious, but inside, everything was cold, rational, without surrender. Idolatry had changed shape. It was no longer a golden calf in the desert. Now it was status, security, comfort, politics, entertainment. Everything that takes the place of God becomes an idol. And when idolatry grows, judgment draws near. And that was when he began to show me what comes after this. Right after those scenes of idolatry, Jesus took me to another place. It was an avenue. On it, several churches. Beautiful facades, lights, big screens, well-dressed people going in and out. Everything seemed perfect until he said, "Look inside." And I saw. Inside those churches, it was dark. Not a physical darkness, but spiritual. A strange emptiness, as if the presence of God had been replaced by something artificial. I saw stages with LED lights, shows, events, people applauding men more than seeking God. I saw leaders concerned with views, with appearance, with control. But the altar was dry. Jesus said, "These places were made to house my glory, but they became stages for men. Where there should be surrender, there is performance. Where there is tears, there is entertainment. Where there is LED light, the light of heaven is missing." That cut me deeply because I understood it was not about structure. It was not about technology. It was about motivation. The Holy Spirit had been left outside, and the churches kept functioning normally without noticing he was no longer there. And the worst, many confused movement with presence, emotion with anointing, crowds with salvation. I saw churches with impeccable programs, but no flame burning. And Jesus whispered, "They traded me for their own image." That was it. A generation that preaches about God without living with God. And I felt in my spirit that this explained much of the darkness I had seen over the country. Because if the church, which should be light, goes out, the world plunges into darkness. And that was when he told me, there is still hope, but it begins with repentance. After that revelation about the churches, Jesus took me to another place. This time, it was as if I were inside several houses at the same time. American families. Apparently normal, but there was something wrong. In the first room, I saw a father and a mother sitting at the table. They didn't exchange a single word, each one trapped in their cell phone. In front of them, two children, each with a tablet in hand, watching videos. No conversation, no prayer, no real presence. Everything looked calm on the outside, but in the spiritual world, that room was covered by a dark, thick, suffocating fog. And Jesus told me, darkness does not enter suddenly. It feeds on silence. In another house, the father was locked in the bedroom playing games, the mother alone in the kitchen, the daughter lying in bed scrolling the feed. No one fought, but no one really loved each other either. They only coexisted, disconnected, cold, alone, even living together. And Jesus asked me a question that burned in my spirit. How many times have these families had dinner together, but never truly saw each other? At that moment, I understood hell doesn't need to scream to destroy a home. It just needs to keep everyone busy, distracted, away from each other, away from God. The fog I saw on the map of the United States was fed by this, by extinguished homes, divided families, homes without prayer. And Jesus said, before tragedy hit the streets, it began inside the houses. That cut me deeply, because I realized that many of the disasters we judge as natural are in fact spiritual reflections of a nation that has forgotten the altar inside its own home. And while he showed me this, I remembered my own house. How many times we were together, but each in our own world. How little we prayed, how little we listened to each other. While I was still seeing families being swallowed up by distraction, I felt something change in the atmosphere. Jesus stood before me. His eyes were firm, serious, but full of compassion. And he said, "Rachel, I do not send chaos, but sometimes I allow the shaking so that what cannot be shaken will remain." At the time, I did not fully understand, but then he extended his hand and showed me what was to come. I saw scenes of the future, as if a timeline had been opened before me. First, I saw a large U.S. city, buildings collapsing, stores closing, people desperate for food. Then I saw a succession of crises, financial collapses, system breakdowns, places once prosperous turning into zones of pain. It was as if everything man had built without God was being shaken all at once. But in the midst of all this, something caught my attention. Some people knelt among the ruins. Some families prayed together on the sidewalks. Churches became houses of prayer again. Young people cried and cried out sincerely. Jesus looked at me and said, "Not every storm comes to destroy. Some come to awaken." Then I understood. Many of the disasters we judge as punishments are in fact disguised mercies. Because when everything collapses, the masks fall. When comfort goes away, the cry returns. And what remains standing is what has roots in me. Jesus did not romanticize the pain. He showed me how it hurts, how unjust, how heavy it is. But he also showed me that sometimes it is at the bottom of the pit that heaven finds room to come down. And there, in the middle of that vision, I began to understand that not all suffering is the end. Some sufferings are the beginning of a great awakening. Still looking at that timeline, I saw the map of the United States again. But now, something had changed. Small points of light began to flicker over the dark map. At first, they were few, weak, but over time, more and more appeared, like embers lit in the middle of darkness. Each point of light was a prayer. They were not prayers on stages with microphones and applause. They were prayers in bedrooms, in cars, in hospitals, on bathroom floors, silent cries, sincere tears, screams no one heard, but heaven listened. Jesus pointed to one of those points and said, "It is because of these that there is still mercy." I saw a mother alone, kneeling by the bed of a sick child, a tired pastor praying at 3 in the morning, not knowing if he could go on. A teenage girl, eyes red from crying so much, saying, "God, hear me just one more time." Each of these moments lit a new light on the map. And Jesus told me something that engraved itself inside me. You have no idea of the battles that are won when you kneel.
At that moment, everything made sense. While the nation was sinking into distraction, pride, and sin, there was a remnant sustaining everything on their knees. They were not on the news. They were not on platforms. But they stood firm in the spiritual world, even if fallen before men. These people, these prayers, were like invisible columns holding up what was left. And I understood. God still answers. He still cares. He still listens. But he listens to those who bow down and pray. I didn't want to leave that place anymore. Being with Jesus was like finally breathing after drowning my whole life. There was no fear, no pain, no loss. It was as if everything I had always searched for was finally complete. So I said to him, "Let me stay, please." But Jesus only looked at me with a love that words cannot explain, and answered, "They cannot hear me now, but they will be able to hear you." My heart froze. I understood what he was saying. The mission was not over. He showed me the faces of people who were still alive, friends, family, neighbors, strangers, empty people, distracted, chasing after nothing, just as I had for so long. And then he said firmly, "You will be a voice when the world begins to fall." In that moment, I saw scenes of what was to come, more disasters, more losses, more people asking, "Where is God?" And I understood that my pain, as cruel as it was part of something much greater. He did not ask me to return with beautiful answers. He gave me 3 clear instructions: alert, love, prepare. That was it. To show the world there is still time, that there is a way, that God has not abandoned anyone, but that many have turned their backs on him. The hardest part? Having to leave that light and return to the darkness here? But I knew this mission was not about me. It was about lives. The first thing I felt was air rushing into my lungs. I opened my eyes and saw frightened faces, screams, running, machines beeping. I was on a stretcher, soaked, with doctors trying to understand what had happened. "She's back!" someone shouted. But I knew I didn't come back alone. While everyone around tried to find explanations, I could only cry. It wasn't confusion, it was gratitude. It was the certainty that something supernatural had just happened and that I would never be the same person again. My hands trembled, my heart ached. I knew what would come next. That was when they told me Daniel did not survive. My world collapsed again. But this time, something inside me sustained what would once have crushed me. It was as if pain was no longer the end, but part of the calling.
I reunited with my children, still in the hospital. I hugged each one as if it were the last time. I couldn't say much. I just cried and thanked God that they were alive. They didn't know it, but the mother who came back was not the same one who said goodbye that night in the flood. Today I carry this mission. I did not come back from the other side to spread fear. I came back to say that Jesus is not punishing the United States. He is trying to rescue what can still be saved. He is shouting, and most keep covering their ears. Chaos is not punishment. It is a call. If this message touched you, if something inside you awakened, comment now, I receive. Not for me, but as a public step of faith, as someone who decides to listen while there is still time. And before you leave here, there is a video on the screen that Jesus can use to awaken you even more. Click and continue with me there.